it's not about like making it equal, it's about making it equitable. Like, these women shouldn't be penalized for wanting to also pursue potentially having a family while also pursuing an athletic career, or any career for that matter. Welcome back to episode 5 of Sarah Says So, your go-to show for women's sports news. Happy Friday, guys. We've got a ton of different stuff to talk about today, so I hope you're strapped in and excited. But of course, before we move forward, make sure you're following at Sarah Says So ETB on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, plus wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on youtube.com/ETB Network. But without further ado, let's get started with today's lineup. So we're going to talk a little bit about league player unions speaking out on immigration injustice. Within the NWSL, Angel City standing on business, Sofia Cantore joining the league, and what I'm now calling the Boston team, the Boston Swans. The WTA has a new rule that's really focused on fertility protection, some PWHL news because free agency started just the other day, and some stuff from the WNBA about the return of the Caitlins and Angel Reese's trademark. So I hope you are as excited as I am. We're going to start off with the news about those league player unions. So this happened on June 12th. It's a little late, and it was the day after I recorded last week, but regardless, I still think it's really important to touch on, just given everything that's going on right now. But the NWSL Players Association and WNBA Players Association issued a joint statement responding to the immigration raids, and I'm just going to read it to you guys. So they posted this on both Instagram accounts as well, I'm sure it's Twitter, but I grabbed like the word specifically from the Instagram. But they said, "We're in the midst of a new season and an incredible moment for women's sports, but it's not lost on us that this country and the world are in turmoil right now. Across the country, families are facing fear, hardship, and uncertainty tied to immigration. We stand with all people seeking safety, dignity, and opportunity, no matter where they come from or where they hope to go. Every person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. We know not every situation is simple, but offering compassion should never be up for debate." So, I mean, obviously, like, this is important to touch on in general, but like, things are literally so bad right now, and like, the worst thing that we can do, like, in all of this is like normalize like what's going on, because none of it is normal. And so I give a lot of credit to the WNBA Players Association and the NWSL Players Association, because like women's leagues are already fighting an uphill battle, and I'm sure like people aren't gonna like this. That being said, the people that aren't gonna like this probably aren't the fans of those leagues. But nonetheless, like, they're still speaking up when they see something that's like fucked up, and like I think that especially now, like, people need to be doing that now more than ever. So even though it's a little bit outdated by the time that you're listening to this, I still wanted to touch on that. But specifically, aside from the statement, Angel City in their Saturday game against the North Carolina Courage, which North Carolina won 2-1, Angel City took a stand against the ICE raids happening in LA. The club distributed 10,000 t-shirts with the message "Immigrant City Football Club" on the front, and on the back it said "Los Angeles is for everyone." And then it, like, that sentence was like stacked and repeated with the same sentence in Spanish, "Los Angeles es para todos." And so that was on the back, and they were really simple. It was just black with like very simple white lettering, and the shirts were handed out to fans and supporters as they got to the stadium. A bunch of the players were wearing them during arrivals, and like the coach and the staff and bench players all were wearing them. It was a really unified show of support. And they also distributed cards with a statement following their initial statement that the team released on June 7th, and the cards read partially according to like reporting from the Gist that I found: "The fabric of this city is made of immigrants. Football does not exist without immigrants. This club does not exist without immigrants." And they had recording artist and like founding investor of the team, Becky G, read that message from on the field before player walkouts. And I give like like I said, like I gave a lot of credit to leagues, but specifically with Angel City, like this is happening right in their own backyard. And especially if you think about like what happened with the Dodgers just this past week, where they didn't want the anthem singer that they had asked to sing in Spanish to sing in Spanish, and then that became like a whole situation. Like I give a lot of credit to the franchises that are actually in these cities where things are happening that are really serious, for like the teams that are speaking up. Like I think it's really important, especially when the silence from the other teams is very, very loud. And then the Gist also quoted what defender Sarah Gordon said after the game, and she said that they made a point to wear the shirts for walkout and they wanted to stand with the community, but like because everyone's affected emotionally just because it's happening there, and it's another thing to like kind of hold space for it and honor. And then she said, that was me like paraphrasing a little bit at the end, and then she said, I wish we could have given a little bit of love and joy to everyone tonight with a different result, because like I said, they lost 2-1. But I just think that, like, again, similar to the statement from the players associations, it's a really powerful thing for the league to be doing, the team to be doing. And I mean, I hope that things don't get worse in other cities, but should things like some other things happen in other cities where there are teams, I would hope that other teams sort of followed suit, in the sense of, again, speaking up when things are clearly not normal and not okay, and again, just not pretending like everything is totally fine, because it's not, and things are freaking weird right now. But that is enough of my political soapbox for the day. Next NWSL news that we're going to talk about is Sofia Cantore signing with the Washington Spirit on a 3-year contract. So she is now the first Italian player in the league's 13-year history. She's 25, and she is coming from, I think you pronounce it Juventus, honestly not 100% sure. And she has a contract through 2027 with an option for 2028, but she's not eligible until July 1st. But she actually won't play for a while because the Spirit don't come back from that mid-season break that the league takes until August 3rd. So there's like a big break in there, and during that time, July 2nd through the 27th, she's supposed to represent Italy at the Women's European Championship, which is going to be in Switzerland. So she'll be keeping busy, keeping her skills up for sure. But I think this is a pretty exciting selection for the Spirit. They have the league's like a really, really strong offense, but they're truly just an absolute injury city. They're missing key attackers with Trinity Rodman, Lacey Santos, and Williamata Sarr. And their leading scorer, Ashley Hatch, missed their last 2 games because of a back issue. And so an attacker like Cantore is really going to hopefully be beneficial for the Spirit in general, but also like as they're trying to fill these gaps from these injured players. Since debuting for Italy in 2020, she scored 5 goals in 37 appearances, and she's played in all 3 of Italy's matches at the 2023 World Cup. So she has a lot of experience. And Adrian Gonzalez, who is the head coach or assistant coach, of the Washington Spirit, but will take over as head coach after this break, said, Sofia is an important signing for the Spirit as we continue to build up our roster to compete for trophies. Her extensive experience in the Italian league and exceptional talent in the attacking third will help add a new layer for the Spirit moving forward. So clearly the club has a lot of confidence in her. I think this is a really good selection. It's also just kind of like exciting to see the league expanding and adding more players from different nationalities and things like that. And Adrian Gonzalez is going to be taking over as head coach because the Spirit current head coach will be moving to a new job coaching over in France for OL Lyon. So they've got some moves over there, but Gonzalez also coached, I believe, the last game that they played because Jonathan Heraldez, who's like the current head coach. I think his wife was in labor or something, if I remember correctly. So Gonzalez has already had like a little bit of taste of like holding the reins and stuff like that, and obviously like he's already the assistant coach, so he like knows the team. So hopefully that transition continues to be like relatively smooth and easy for them, I guess, so to speak. But yeah, it'll be exciting to see what Sofia can add once they're back from that break in their first game as a club on August 3rd, whether she plays or not. I feel like she would, though, especially like coming off of whatever happens in the European Championship. It's not like she won't have been like playing. Like obviously they're all going to keep like training and stuff, but I'd be kind of surprised, I feel like, if she didn't play in that first match. But last little piece of NWSL news, Boston Legacy recently debuted their Crest, which, first of all, thank God that they changed their name from Boss Nation FC, because that was like actually crazy. Like literally in my notes I have as a bullet point, huge improvement from the first fuck ass name, because what was that? Obviously this like Crest is not related to like the name necessarily, but they changed the name to Boston Legacy, and I was like, okay, I like that. And if they had come out with a crest that was like horrendous, I would have been really annoyed. But it's like a black outline with like the bright green behind it, and it just says Boston, and then in like on the top, and then under that, it's like a big like black kind of filling bottom of the crest with just like a big white swan on it, which is why at the beginning of the episode I made the joke that I will be calling them the Boston Swans. But I really, really like it. I ended up actually seeing this because I saw Super and Megan Rapinoe reacting to it on their podcast, and their responses were really funny. But I like it a lot. Like, obviously, like, you guys know I have, like, Boston bias just from spending the last 4 years there. But I really like the Swans because I'm, like, 99% sure. I didn't, like, double check this, but I'd be shocked if I was wrong, that they're like a nod to the public garden, like swan boats and everything. And I really like when teams like subtly acknowledge like the culture of the city and the place that they're representing like that, especially with this team after they fucked up that first name so badly. Yeah, I think I will forever call them the Boston Swans now, but I really, really like it. Like, that's not a jab at all. I think it's really sick, and I'm excited to see like what the jerseys look like and everything like that. Obviously, they're not playing until next year, but it seems like the rollout of the team is going better than I thought it would based on that first initial like name drop, as it were. So yeah, pretty excited for them. In terms of this weekend, there are several games. There are 7. So on Friday, June 20th, there are 2 games, both at 7 Central, Orlando Pride at Racing Louisville and Angel City at Kansas City Current. And then on June 21st, Saturday, there are 4 games. At 4 p.m., you have Seattle Reign at Utah Royals, 2 games at 6:30, Houston Dash at North Carolina Courage, and Bay at Gotham. And then at 9 o'clock, you have the Chicago Stars at the Portland Thorns. Finally, on Sunday, June 22nd, there's just 1 game at 9 o'clock, Washington Spirit at San Diego Wave. So it's a good amount of games on the soccer side. I'll talk about the specifics of the WNBA schedule a little bit later, but I'm pretty sure there are 10 games this weekend. So 17 games just between the 2 leagues. You can really, like, depending on how many screens you have and, like, if you can split screen certain things, you could be really just, like, locked in on so many different versions of women's sports all weekend, which wouldn't be bad. Although I know at least here it's supposed to be drop dead gorgeous. So maybe bring the screens outside. Not sure. Do what you want to do. That is it for NWSL news. But we are going to really quickly talk about the Women's Tennis Association. So they just adopted a new measure that provides ranking protection for any athletes that are within the association that are choosing to undergo fertility protection. So that's anything like IVF or egg or embryo freezing. So the development of this has been like received really, really well by WTA players, and it really just kind of shows like a further improvement in equity in terms of sport, because like this isn't something that like male tennis players or male athletes in general have to like worry about, because they're not like being necessarily affected by like the hormonal changes or anything that your body goes through when you're preparing to do IVF or like preparing to freeze your eggs, your embryos or anything like that. And so it means basically now that players can take time away from professional tennis to have one of those procedures, and they won't fall in ranking at all for missing like any matches. So they'll get a special entry ranking, which can be used to enter up to 3 tournaments based on the 12-week average of their WTA ranking from 8 weeks prior to the start of their out-of-competition period. So it's like a little bit complicated, and I will admit, not 100% like the best with tennis rules and regulations necessarily, but I think this is a really exciting step. Obviously, like I'm sure it's going to get flack from people saying like, oh, like this is just like making more like people that hate women in sports like are just going to say like, oh, it's like more like making just like it easier for them, whatever. It's not about like making it equal, it's about making it equitable. Like these women shouldn't be penalized for wanting to also pursue potentially having a family while also pursuing an athletic career or any career for that matter. And so I think this is a really exciting decision from the WTA, and I'm interested to see, like, obviously not all sports have like individual rankings because like teams, whatever, but I'm interested to see if any other leagues follow suit in some sort of similar fashion in terms of like not necessarily like protecting rankings, but like protecting maybe like playing time or something. I'm honestly not entirely sure how it works in other leagues, like how they respond to players like wanting to take time off or things like that for fertility protection treatments. But I think as like women's leagues become larger and more profitable and more visible and more like women are joining because there are more teams, I think it's something that we might like see continued to be discussed by leagues in an interesting way. But I think this is a really, really good first step from the Women's Tennis Association. So shout out to them for that. Really quick, we are going to take a little break for a message from our friends at Playback, but right after that, we will catch up with some PWHL and WNBA news.
Presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together, with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about, win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show.
And welcome back. So PWHL free agency opened this past Monday, June 16th at 9 Eastern. Obviously, you're listening to this on a Friday, but all of the moves that I have so far are up from 9 a.m. on Monday, 8 a.m. on Monday Central Time to about 4 on Wednesday Central Time, just because I checked right before I started recording on Wednesday. But there have already been quite a lot of moves. There have been 25 inked deals so far, and this is only, like, we're not even through 3 full days. So pretty interesting to see that, like, who's moving really quickly. Seattle and Vancouver, the 2 new teams, have each picked up some people. So Vancouver has signed 5 players during free agency, and Seattle's only signed 3. It was pretty interesting in terms of the fact that when I was just kind of like looking at the timeline, Vancouver signed all 5 of their players that they've taken so far in free agency before Seattle signed their first person in free agency. So something I thought was interesting just in terms of when these decisions and moves were being made is that Vancouver signed their 5 free agents that they've taken up until the point that I'm recording before Seattle signed any of their 3. So I'm always just curious, especially like because there are only 2 new teams. It's really interesting to compare the 2. I feel like Vancouver has been making moves much faster than Seattle has. Overall, they have 17 players signed like on their roster throughout this entire exclusive signing window, expansion draft, and free agency so far. And I think it'll be really interesting kind of to see what unfolds as we finish up the last couple days of free agency and then also the draft where their numbers kind of fall. Right now, they each have 1 goaltender, and Vancouver has 10 forwards and 6 defenders. Seattle also has 6 defenders, but they only have 8 forwards. So those 2 more players that Vancouver has than Seattle are both forwards. I'm very interested to see it, like what goaltending selections they make in terms of the draft. I can't remember specifically who is like available in terms of goaltending strength for the upcoming draft, but obviously like there will be options and they're not going to each just have 1 goalie because if they get hurt, you're literally fucked. So we'll be curious to see what kind of happens there. But yeah, overall, there have been a ton of moves. Like I said, there have been 25 at the time that I'm recording. And I would say, decently split between people re-signing and signing with new teams. A couple things that I would just like point out that I don't know why I'm like justifying it. This is literally my podcast. Anyway, yesterday on Tuesday, Maddie Rooney re-signed with Minnesota on a 3-year contract. And again, she's their goaltender. She's pretty strong, pretty consistent. They've been having great success with their goaltenders for these last 2 seasons, obviously winning the Walter Cup both times. So exciting to see that she's kind of getting rewarded in that sense and signing again on a pretty long contract. That's the longest any of the contracts that I've seen throughout the league have been. But I can't remember if there's like a limit on how many years that they can sign for at this point in time, like because the league is so young or something, or if I'm making that up. But I do think it's interesting that they're only kind of going up to 3-year deals with anyone. But yeah, there have been a lot of moves. Personally, I'm bummed that Lexi Agia is going to Seattle from Boston. I really like her. She's a great player. But that's, again, another selection from Seattle, or like deal, I guess, that Seattle came to. And lest we forget, Seattle is being managed now by the former Boston assistant coach. So the amount of Boston players going to that Seattle program makes me sad that we're losing them, but I think it speaks a lot to the culture and the talent that they have over there now. So excited for them. Natalie Spooner re-signed with Toronto, so did Jesse Comber. Cheyenne Darkangelo is going from Ottawa to Montreal with a new 2-year contract. I have a whole spreadsheet really in front of me right now of all of the players from free agent. I mean, I have a spreadsheet for each section, but free agency specifically, I'm just like looking at what names pop out at me. Oh, the last move I saw before recording was Boston signing Liz Shepard and Chloe Arar to a 2- and 1-year contract respectively. Jesus, you can tell I haven't slept in a while. But both of them are going to be new to the Fleet team. But I'm super pumped because Chloe is a Northeastern alum, and watching her and Alina Mueller on the ice together at Northeastern was such an absolute treat. I'm so excited for them to get to be back together because they're great friends, but also I'm like praying that they're on the same line so we can have that like duo back together and absolutely crushing it. I just have such like a little soft spot for the two of them. So that's what I'm hoping for, but there's still some time left in free agency. I'm pretty sure it goes until the end of the week, if I remember correctly. I should know that off the top of my head, but I do not, unfortunately. In terms of other PWHL news, and again, I promise it's not just because it's Boston, but it's actually important. Boston head coach Courtney Kessel is leaving for the Princeton head coach opening, which was left vacant by the new PWHL Vancouver GM, Kara Gardner-Mori. So there's no new selection yet, and I don't know anything in terms of like rumors, but it's obviously not an ideal time to be leaving. Danielle Marber is probably working overtime, and prayers up to her for that. I think this is kind of a good decision, though. I'm not a huge fan necessarily of Kessel. I feel like she kind of like had Boston crashing and burning a little bit. And like a lot of the choices that she made with players like just didn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me in terms of like, again, not just because I enjoy Alina, but like putting her on the PK so late in the season and then she's having jailbreak goals. Like, you should have done that so much earlier. Like, you know that she's good at being like playing that role. Like, I don't know. It just felt like she made like good decisions year one, and then year two, like it went kind of crazy. But I think it will be good for Princeton to have her lead that program just in terms of like recruiting draw and having a coach with like professional coaching experience. That being said, she doesn't necessarily have the best track record in terms of like coaching wins and losses overall. So I'll be intrigued to kind of see what unfolds there and how like over time, obviously, like if she stays there, how long she's around, what she kind of does with that program. But I do think it's probably better for her to be in a collegiate league rather than like major professional league, at least like as of now, just based on how she's kind of performed while leading the fleet. But yeah, so that is all I have to say about Miss Courtney. The last PWHL piece of news I have for you is that the 2025 draft order, it has been announced. So I talked about this, I think, probably like the last 2 weeks. I've been dying to know like where they were going to put Vancouver and Seattle because I assumed it would be last. But I have like kind of a lot of like the more that the expansion process unfolds, the more I have like reservations about it because I feel like they almost like overcompensated, and now these two teams are going to be really, really strong, which like isn't necessarily bad, but I mean like stronger than the other 6 significantly. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But in terms of the draft order, we have so they basically decided based on a couple different things. So New York Sirens will go first. They have the most draft order points in the plan, basically because they didn't do super great. So they get to go first and try to make it better. This happened to them last year too. Didn't help last year. Maybe it'll help this year. I'm not sure. But after the Sirens, we have the Fleet. They are there because they were a non-playoff team, followed by the Toronto Scepters as the lowest-ranked playoff semifinalist. Fourth will be Montreal Victoire, the highest-ranked playoff semifinalist, followed by Ottawa as a PWHL finalist, and then Minnesota as the champion. Finally, last it's Vancouver, followed by Seattle. So a random like draw determined between Seattle and Vancouver, which would go first. And in all rounds after that first round, they'll alternate positions to kind of keep it even, so to speak. So that'll be really interesting. The draft is Tuesday, June 25th at 6 Central, and it'll be on, like, I think TSN, whatever the Canadian, like, thing is that always broadcasts. It's either TSN or CSN. I'm not in Canada, so I actually literally don't know. But in the US, you get to watch it on the lovely YouTube, which my YouTube it must be like my Wi-Fi or something, because my, like, PWHL games are always, like, consistently 40, like, plus seconds behind and always, like, buffering and lagging. And I feel like it has to be, like, my connection or something, but it drives me up the freaking wall because all I want to do is watch the games and, like, actually be seeing what's happening. Like, is that too much to ask? Anyway, I digress. But yeah, if you're interested in watching the draft, it'll be in the US, it'll be on their YouTube channel live streamed. So that is that. Moving into some I almost just said PWHL, WNBA news. We have the return of the Caitlins. So once I came up with this, I, like, couldn't not use it, just like the return of the Caitlins thing, which maybe that's just me being cheesy, but I think it's funny. Caitlin Clark is back from injury. June 14th, her first game back. She scored 32 points to hand the Liberty their first loss of the season. So it's obviously a little bit of old news, but it's really great for her, and obviously, like, that she's healed, but also for the league that she's back. I know there's been, like, a ton of talk about, like, ratings and attendance dipping because people want to see Caitlin and she wasn't there, which, like, I do get. I feel like it's like a little bit dramatic in terms of, like, I'm sorry that she's, like, injured, but doesn't mean you shouldn't go to the game overall. I don't know. I think that whole thing was, like, a little bit weird, but it's great for her that she's back in terms of, like, I know she was, like, itching to be playing again, and the Fever definitely needed it. They were struggling a little bit without her. So great for her, great for them. And then on the other Caitlin side, we have Caitlin Chen re-signing with the Golden State Valkyries. I'm so thrilled about this, and I also feel so validated because if anyone recalls from episode 0, I literally spent, like, a solid couple minutes being like, oh my god, Caitlin Chen, I'm so excited to have her in the league, blah, blah, blah. And then I finished recording, and I looked at my phone, and, like, the news had broken that they released her, and I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. But she worked so hard. She deserved this so bad. I'm so excited that they re-signed her. I also saw a quote from UConn coach Gino Auriemma, who she spent her, like, grad year there after playing at Princeton. But she was like, he said something, and he was like, she deserves to be in this league. Like, she's a hard worker. And on Tuesday, the 14th, the Valkyries played Dallas, which is obviously Paige Becker's team. So he went to the Dallas Golden State game on Tuesday to see both of his girls, which I thought was really sweet. Caitlin didn't play in that game, but Dallas got their first home win, 80-71. So that's super exciting. And I'm sure it was just, like, super awesome for her and Paige to get to see each other. Like, the clip of Paige at the draft where she's, like, either signing or talking to media, I think both, and they called Caitlin's name. She, like, jumps up. She's like, is that Caitlin Chen? And she gets so excited. And it's just, like, so sweet how much they, like, support each other and everything. And so I'm sure that was, like, really nice for them to kind of get to see each other again. But I'm really excited to see what she does with Golden State. I'm glad that they kind of realized that they made a mistake in letting her go. So I'm very hopeful that she'll have a good season, but also make a good amount of difference for them over there, especially in their first year. But yeah, in other news, Angel Reese is clapping back at her trolls by filing to trademark the term Mebounds with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Honestly, like, she can do no wrong in my eyes. Like, I think this is hysterical. It's probably for merch because she applied in, like, the goods services category, but like this is so funny. Like, this is why I love her, because, like, instead of, like, getting mad that people are shitting on her, and, like, the reason that it's, like, Mebounds is because, like, her rebound stats have been so good, but like this guy had been doing so terrible, and so everyone's like, oh, like she cares about like herself and getting the rebounds and whatever. Like, it's not one person's fault. The team is not doing well. Like, I'm begging people to be serious. But yeah, I think this is hysterical. I like hope she makes merch out of it, and like, it's just such a good example of like turning the bullshit and the crap that other people like try to give you or try to throw on you into something great, and just like showing the haters that you stay winning. Honestly, like, I don't know. I respect the hell out of her. Like, I can't imagine like how much of a toll it like must take to have like so many people on the internet be so mean to you constantly. And like, obviously she's not sitting around reading comments, but like that shit's hard. Like, it takes a toll on your mental health. And like, I like commend her so much for how well she's like handling all of this, especially like at such a young age. So again, as always, last week the banner was more reasons you should be an Angel Reese defender. I should have just kept it, honestly, but love her, love my girl. In terms of games this weekend in the league, I was right. I said earlier, I think there are 10. Friday, June 20th, there are 3 games. There are 2 at 6:30 Central. That's going to be Washington Mystics at Atlanta Dream and Dallas Wings at Connecticut Sun, followed by a 9 p.m. game between the Seattle Storm at the Las Vegas Aces. Saturday, the 21st, there are 2 games. Phoenix Mercury at Chicago Sky at 12 Central, and Los Angeles Sparks at Minnesota Lynx at 7 p.m. Central. And then finally, Sunday, June 22nd, there are 5 games. So 3 of them will be at 2 p.m. Central. The Chicago Sky at Atlanta Dream, Dallas Wings at Washington Mystics, and Indiana Fever at Las Vegas Aces. Then at 6 p.m., the New York Liberty will face the Seattle Storm in Seattle. And finally at 7:30, Connecticut Sun at Golden State Valkyries. So, like I said before, tons and tons and tons of women's sports to be catching up with and tuning into this weekend, which you should be doing every weekend, like I always say, but here you go again. If you're not doing it, I don't know. I can lead the horse to water, but I cannot make it drink. So do with the information in the game times what you will. And I'll, as usual, support women's sports. That like sounded so sarcastic. I feel like I have, this is only like, technically it's episode 6, but like with our numbering system, it's 5. I feel like I haven't been like putting out my dry humor enough for me to like be going and support women's sports. Also, if you're listening to this, you can't see my face, which was like very clearly joking. But anyway, on that note, that's all I have for you today. So thanks so much again. This has been episode 5 of Sarah Says So. If you aren't already, make sure you're following all of the socials. So that's at Sarah Says So ETB on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. You can also check out the accompanying video to the audio on youtube.com/ETB network, as well as Sarah Says So wherever you get your podcast. But thanks so much for listening, and we'll chat next week.